Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into another deep dive. This time, we're tackling one of the biggest mysteries in recent history, one that still sparks debate and captures imaginations: the death of Princess Diana.
A story that's as tragic as it is shrouded in speculation.
Exactly. And while we all know the basics, the car crash, the Parisian tunnel, what we're really here to unpack is the web of conspiracy theories that have sprung up around that night.
Right, because for a lot of people, that official story, it just doesn't cut it. There are too many unanswered questions, too many what-ifs.
Exactly. So we're not here to fuel the rumor mill, but to really dissect those theories, hold them up to the light, and see what, if anything, holds up against the official record.
Sounds like a plan. Where do we even begin?
Well, let's rewind the clock back to August 31st, 1997. Imagine, Princess Diana and Dodi Fayed are leaving the Ritz Hotel in Paris, cameras flashing, paparazzi in pursuit.
A sadly familiar scene for Diana, constantly hounded by the press.
Sadly, yeah. And this relentless chase, it becomes a key factor in the events that unfold. They hop into a Mercedes driven by Henri Paul, part of the security team at the Ritz, hoping to outrun the paparazzi.
And this is where things get really interesting. The seating arrangement in that car, it becomes a tragic detail.
How so?
Well, Diana and Dodi are in the back, but in the front passenger seat is Trevor Rees-Jones, Diana's bodyguard. He's the only one wearing a seatbelt.
And he's the sole survivor.
Exactly. The fact that he survived while the others didn't, it's fueled a lot of speculation over the years.
Right, like some people see it as evidence of something more than just a simple accident.
Exactly. It raises questions, makes you wonder if there's more to the story.
But let's stick with the facts for now. So the Mercedes speeds away from the Ritz, exceeding the speed limit, trying to shake the paparazzi, and enters the Pont tunnel.
And that's when it happens. The crash.
The Mercedes slams into a pillar. Diana, Dodi, and Henri Paul are all killed.
A tragedy that sent shockwaves around the world.
Absolutely. And in the aftermath, two separate investigations were launched. One by the French authorities, one by the British.
Both independent, both trying to piece together what happened in that tunnel.
And what did they conclude?
Both investigations came to the same conclusion. A tragic accident caused by a perfect storm of factors. Henri Paul's blood alcohol level was well over the legal limit. The car was traveling at excessive speed, and that relentless paparazzi pursuit, it all played a role.
So a confluence of bad decisions, incredible pressure, and just terrible luck.
That seems to be the most likely scenario, yes.
But for many, that explanation felt too simple, too straightforward, especially for a life as complex and captivating as Diana's.
Right, and that's where the conspiracy theories come in.
And when you talk about these theories, it's like, where do you even start? There are so many.
It's true, the sheer volume of speculation surrounding Diana's death it's really remarkable.
It really is. But I think one of the most persistent, the one that just won't go away, is the theory that, and I know it sounds crazy even saying it out loud, that the British royal family was somehow involved in Diana's death.
Yeah, that's the big one, isn't it? The idea that the people's princess was actually a threat and that the monarchy itself conspired to eliminate that threat. It's powerful stuff.
It's like something out of a movie, right?
Yeah.
And you can kind of see how people put the pieces together. Diana's very public split from Prince Charles, her relationship with Dodi Fayed, who was, as everyone knows, the son of Mohammed Al Fayed, a prominent Egyptian billionaire.
And Mohammed Al Fayed was incredibly vocal. In the years after Diana's death, he was completely convinced that the royal family, that they were behind it all, that they had orchestrated the crash to prevent Diana from, further embarrassing the monarchy.
Because of her relationship with Dodi.
Yes, and because Dodi was Muslim. Al Fayed believed the royal family couldn't stand the thought of their sons, William and Harry, having a Muslim stepfather. It's a powerful accusation, and it really resonated with a lot of people.
It's like you hear that, and you think, well, they were already divorced, right? But then you factor in the potential scandal, the global attention. It makes you wonder, if someone wanted to protect the image of the royal family, would they go that far?
Right, and that's the question that fueled so much of the speculation. But here's the thing. Was there ever any evidence to support these claims about the royal family? And that's where things get, less clear-cut.
Less clear-cut? You mean there AS evidence?
No, that's not what I mean. There wasn't any direct evidence. But there were enough, let's call them loose ends, to keep those theories alive.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, take Henri Paul, the driver. Remember how we talked about his blood alcohol being a major factor in the crash?
Yeah.
Well, conspiracy theorists seized on that. They claimed the blood samples were tampered with, that Henri Paul was actually a skilled driver, that he never would have driven drunk, especially with Diana in the car.
Okay, but wouldn't that be easy to disprove? I mean, they could just retest the samples, right?
They did. As part of a massive investigation, Operation Paget, they exhumed Henri Paul's body and conducted a second round of tests. And guess what?
What?
The results were the same. Henri Paul was, without a doubt, heavily intoxicated that night.
So another dead end for the conspiracy theorists.
You'd think so, right? But it didn't stop there. They claimed the investigation itself was flawed, that it was designed to protect the royal family, to cover up the truth.
Wow, so no matter what, they'd find a way to hold on to that theory.
Exactly. And that's the thing about conspiracy theories. They often become self-perpetuating. Any attempt to debunk them is seen as further proof of a cover-up.
It's like the more you try to untangle it, the more knotted it gets. But okay, what about the other theories, the ones that don't directly implicate the royal family? Like what about the white Fiat?
Ah, yes, the mysterious white Fiat Uno. That's another detail that has fueled endless speculation.
Okay, so we've got the alleged royal family plot. We've got this mysterious white Fiat Uno that was never found. What else is there? There's got to be more, right?
Oh, there's more. There's always more. Remember, we're talking about a case where emotions were already running high. Right. Diana was beloved. Her death was sudden and shocking, so naturally people were grasping for explanations.
And when those official explanations don't quite satisfy, that's when the more outlandish theories start to take hold.
Exactly. And one of those theories, and this one is particularly interesting, revolves around the idea of a bright light, like a flash of light, that might have played a role in the crash.
A flash of light, like intentionally.
That's the theory. Some witnesses claim to have seen a bright flash just before the Mercedes entered the tunnel, leading to speculation that someone might have deliberately tried to blind Henri Paul, causing him to lose control of the car.
Okay, now that does sound like something out of a spy movie, but is there any evidence to support that? Did they ever find, like, a source for this alleged flash of light?
Well, that's the thing. It's all a bit murky. There was never any conclusive proof that a deliberate flash of light was used. Some witnesses reported seeing a flash, others didn't. And even those who did, their accounts varied quite a bit.
So it could have been anything, car headlights, a camera flash, who knows?
Exactly. And without any hard evidence, it's impossible to say for sure what those witnesses saw, or if they even saw anything unusual at all.
So, another dead end.
It would seem so, yes. But that doesn't mean the theories have gone away. There are still people out there who believe that the flash of light was a deliberate act of sabotage.
Okay, so what about Henri Paul himself? I mean, we've talked about the alcohol, but were there any other suspicions about him? Like, was there any chance he was intentionally part of a bigger plot?
Oh, absolutely. That's another theory that gained a lot of traction, especially when you consider the fact that they found a large sum of money in his bank account after the crash.
Really? Now, that does sound suspicious.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, that immediately fueled speculation that maybe he had been bribed or that he was being paid to cover something up.
So did they ever figure out where that money came from?
They did. As it turned out, the money was traced back to legitimate earnings, bonuses from his job at the Ritz, and some personal savings.
So another example of a seemingly incriminating detail that turns out to be nothing more than a coincidence.
Precisely. And I think it highlights just how easily our perceptions can be swayed by circumstance, especially in a case like this, where emotions are so heightened.
It makes you wonder how many other pieces of the puzzle might have been misinterpreted or taken out of context simply because people were looking for something, anything, to support their theories.
It's a fascinating psychological phenomenon, isn't it? The way we seek out patterns, connections, even when none really exist.
Okay, last but not least, let's talk about the ambulance. Why did it take so long for Diana to get to the hospital? Was that ever explained?
It was. And as with so many aspects of this case, the explanation is more complicated than it might seem at first glance. See, there was this belief, particularly in the UK, that the French medical team was slow to respond, that they wasted precious time that could have saved Diana's life.
Was that true?
Well, not really. It turns out it all came down to a difference in emergency medical protocols. In France, at that time, the emphasis was on stabilizing patients at the scene of an accident before transporting them.
So they weren't being negligent, they were just following a different set of procedures.
Exactly. And while those procedures might seem strange or even wrong to someone from a different medical system, they were standard practice in France at the time.
So another tragic misunderstanding. Another layer of complexity added to an already convoluted situation.
There's a lot to unpack, isn't it?
It really is. We've covered a lot of ground here, but I think the big takeaway for me is just how powerful these conspiracy theories can be. They tap into our deepest fears, our need to make sense of the senseless, and sometimes they lead us down some pretty strange and winding paths.
It's a reminder, I think, to be critical of what we hear, to question our assumptions, and always, always look for evidence.
Well said. And on that note, for those of you who want to dig a little deeper, we'll be sure to link to the official investigation reports in the show notes. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.